Marriage is built on trust, or at least, that's what I used to believe. I had always thought my wife and I shared an unbreakable bond, one fortified by years of shared experiences, laughter, and the kind of deep understanding that only grows with time. We weren't perfect. No marriage is. But I trusted her. That trust shattered the moment I saw the receipt. It had started with a simple text message 3 days before her mother's birthday. "Mom isn't feeling well, so we're not gathering this year." I remember reading it and feeling a pang of sympathy. Her mother, Evelyn, had always been a strong woman, but age and health had started catching up with her. I hadn't even questioned it. I sent my well wishes, made a mental note to check in later, and moved on. Then, days later, I was taking out the trash, an ordinary, mindless chore. The night was cool, the kind that hinted at an approaching winter. I tied up the bag, walked outside to the bin, and tossed it in. That's when I saw it. A crumpled piece of paper, discarded like an afterthought. It might have gone unnoticed had the dim glow of the porch light not caught the faint, bold lettering at the top, La Maison. I frowned, reaching down to pick it up. I smoothed it out against my palm, my breath catching as I read the details. A luxury restaurant, a full-course meal for 4, Dom Perignon, imported truffle risotto, a lavish evening of indulgence. The date? Her mother's birthday. My pulse pounded in my ears. The receipt wasn't old. The ink hadn't even faded. This wasn't some forgotten purchase from months ago, something shoved into a purse and later tossed. This was fresh, and I hadn't been there. I gripped the receipt, my fingers curling around it as a sickening feeling settled deep in my gut. She lied. It wasn't a simple omission, a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. I walked back inside, my mind whirling. She was in the kitchen, humming softly as she poured herself a glass of wine. The very picture of ease, of someone with nothing to hide. She looked up, smiling warmly. It was sad not having a party, wasn't it? I stared at her. The way she said it, the casualness of her tone, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't just spent the night dining at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city while I sat at home believing her lie. I felt my jaw tighten, my chest constricting with something I couldn't yet name. Anger? Betrayal? I didn't know what I was expecting. Guilt in her eyes? A shift in her expression? But there was nothing. She was lying to my face. And that was when it hit me. The betrayal wasn't just in the act. It was in her ease, in her ability to say something so effortlessly untrue without the slightest hesitation. I said nothing. I turned and walked away, gripping the receipt so tightly that the paper crumpled in my fist. She didn't call after me, didn't ask if something was wrong, and that, perhaps, was the most telling part of all. I drove aimlessly that night, my knuckles white against the steering wheel as the city blurred past me in streaks of headlights and neon signs. I wasn't sure where I was going, only that I needed to get away. Away from the house. Away from her. Away from the suffocating weight of a lie I hadn't even confronted yet. Why had she lied? The question pounded in my head like a relentless drum, each beat a reminder that everything I thought I knew about my marriage had been shaken. It wasn't just a forgotten invite. It wasn't a last-minute decision that slipped her mind. It was a calculated deception. She had made a choice. She had picked up her phone, typed that message, and pressed send knowing full well that she would be sitting at a restaurant with her family that night, laughing, drinking champagne, celebrating. Without me. Did they think I wouldn't find out? I had been a part of her family for 10 years. I had never once treated them as anything less than my own. I had helped plan birthdays, organized gifts that I knew would make her mother smile, sat through long, drawn-out family gatherings, and attended every major event, even when work had been piling up. Yet, when the time came to celebrate Evelyn's birthday, I wasn't just forgotten. I was excluded. A deliberate act. A decision made by all of them, not just her. My stomach twisted at the thought. Had they sat at that restaurant, clinking their glasses, making toasts, and not once did anyone ask, "Where is he? Why isn't he here?" Or worse, maybe they had. Maybe someone had asked, and my wife had fed them a lie, too. Oh, he was busy with work. He wasn't feeling well. He didn't want to come. Or maybe, just maybe, they hadn't asked at all. I exhaled sharply, pulling the car over into an empty parking lot. I needed a second to breathe, to process, to keep myself from punching the steering wheel in frustration. The receipt sat on the passenger seat, its edges slightly crumpled from where I had gripped it too tightly earlier. A full-course meal for 4. That detail kept needling at me. Who were the 4? I assumed her mother and father, naturally. Her sister, Julia, most likely. And Olivia. But there was another. Someone else had been there. My mind immediately spiraled into darker possibilities. Was it another friend? A cousin? Or was it worse than that? I clenched my jaw, shaking off the thought before it could settle in my chest. No, I couldn't let my mind go there. Not yet. Not until I had proof. I picked up my phone and opened our texts. Her last message still sat there, staring at me like a mockery of my own stupidity. Mom isn't feeling well, so we're not gathering this year. I could see it so clearly now, the effortless way she had sent that lie. The way she had carried on, acting as if nothing had happened. Like I didn't even deserve to know the truth. I scrolled up through our messages, reading through past conversations, wondering if there had been signs that I had missed. Had there been other lies? Little ones? Ones that I had brushed off, too trusting, too naive to see them for what they were? I checked our call history. I had called her the night of Evelyn's birthday. Twice. Both times, she hadn't picked up. Both times, she had later texted me some excuse. Sorry, I was already asleep. Another lie. My fingers tightened around the phone as a bitter laugh escaped me. How easy it had been for her. I checked the time. Nearly midnight. My mind was too restless to go home, but I couldn't sit in my car all night either. I needed answers. I opened Instagram. Olivia rarely posted, but her sister, Julia, was different. She loved sharing snippets of her life, selfies, brunch pictures, gym check-ins, and I had a gut feeling that tonight would be no different. I searched for her profile and tapped on her latest post. And there it was. A group photo at La Maison, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. Olivia sat between her mother and father, smiling as if nothing in the world was amiss. Her wine glass was half full, the table in front of them littered with plates of gourmet food. Julia had even tagged the location. The caption? A night to remember. Happy birthday, Mom. 2 Hearts birthday cake. My stomach churned. It wasn't just a lie. It was a performance. A perfectly curated moment, captured and displayed for everyone to see, except me. I stared at the screen, feeling something inside me shift. The anger that had been simmering beneath the surface was no longer just anger. It was something colder, something final. This wasn't just about a birthday dinner. It was about who Olivia had chosen to be. I had spent a decade believing in our marriage, believing in her, and in return, she had looked me in the eyes and lied without hesitation. I set my phone down, exhaling slowly. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It was a choice. And now, I had a choice to make too. Because if Olivia thought she could get away with this, if she thought I would just sit back and let this go, she was wrong. She had just given me a reason to stop being the trusting husband I had always been. And once trust is broken, there's no going back. The next morning, I woke up before Olivia, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything I had uncovered the night before. My mind replayed the details over and over. The receipt, the Instagram post, the way she had looked me in the eye and lied without hesitation. She had moved in her sleep at some point, resting her arm over my chest, breathing evenly, completely unaware that the man lying beside her was no longer the same man from yesterday. I turned my head slightly, studying her face. She looked peaceful, innocent, even. It was almost insulting. If she had the audacity to lie so boldly, would she even admit it if I confronted her? That was the question that gnawed at me. I had imagined it in my head all night, walking into the kitchen, tossing the receipt on the counter, and watching her reaction. Would she fumble for an excuse? Would she try to gaslight me, act like it wasn't a big deal? Or worse, would she double down and act like I was overreacting? The idea of hearing her say, "It was just dinner," or "You're being ridiculous," made my stomach churn. I needed to see how far she would take the lie. So, instead of waking her up, instead of demanding an explanation right then and there, I got out of bed quietly, showered, and got dressed like it was just another normal morning. By the time I walked into the kitchen, she was already there, wearing one of her oversized sweatshirts, her hair slightly messy from sleep, sipping on a cup of coffee like nothing had changed. She looked up and smiled at me. "Morning. You left early last night. Everything okay?" I almost laughed. "Everything okay?" I could feel the crumpled receipt still sitting in my pocket, a physical reminder that everything was far from okay. But I smiled back. "Yeah, just went for a drive. Needed some air." She nodded, completely unfazed. "Work's been stressful for you lately, huh?" Work. That was the assumption she had made, that my change in mood had something to do with work. She had no idea that I was looking right at her and seeing a stranger. I sat at the table, watching her move around the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, completely at ease. No guilt, no hesitation. If I hadn't found that receipt, I would have never suspected a thing. It made me wonder, how many other lies had she told? The thought lodged itself into my mind like a splinter. What if this wasn't the first time? What if I had been blindly trusting her for years, only for her to have lied about more than just a dinner? The idea unsettled me more than I cared to admit. But for now, I kept my expression neutral. I sipped my coffee, nodded at the right moments, let her carry the conversation like nothing had changed. And in doing so, I realized something. She wasn't going to tell me. Not unless I forced it out of her. If I hadn't found that receipt, if I hadn't checked Julia's Instagram, she would have continued on as if nothing happened. She would have smiled at me, kissed me, slept beside me, all while knowing she had lied. That realization hit me harder than I expected, because it meant this wasn't some simple mistake. It meant she didn't think I deserved the truth. I pocketed the receipt again, making a quiet decision. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. I wanted to know why she had done it, and I wanted to see how far she would take the lie. That evening, as we sat on the couch watching TV, she leaned her head against my shoulder. I could feel her warmth, feel the familiar weight of her presence. But for the first time in our marriage, it didn't bring me comfort. It only made me realize how well she had fooled me, and how much worse it would feel when she realized I had figured it out. I couldn't let it go. No matter how much I tried to push it aside, to act like everything was normal, my mind kept circling back to one thought. Why did she lie? It wasn't the lie itself that haunted me. It was the ease with which she had done it. The way she had gone about her day, kissed me goodnight, and looked me in the eye without a flicker of guilt. I needed answers. So, I did what any man would do when doubt eats away at him. I started digging. The first thing I checked was her Instagram. Nothing. Olivia wasn't the type to post much, so that didn't surprise me. But I knew her sister, Julia, was different. I typed in her name, clicked on her profile, and there it was. A post from Evelyn's birthday. A group photo at La Maison. They were all there. Olivia sat between her mother and father, holding a glass of wine, laughing. Julia had tagged the location, added some heart emojis, and captioned it. "A night to remember. Happy birthday, Mom." 2 hearts birthday cake. I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. I wasn't just excluded. I was erased. Not a single mention of me. Not a single empty seat that suggested I was even invited. I zoomed in on the picture, scanning each face. Her parents, her sister, and then the fourth person. It was a man. Someone I didn't recognize. I leaned forward, my jaw tightening. Who the hell was he? He wasn't some distant cousin I would have remembered. He wasn't a coworker or a family friend I had met before. No, he was someone else entirely. And Olivia was sitting too close to him. My mind raced, possibilities flashing through my head, each one worse than the last. I checked Julia's other posts, scrolled through her stories, anything that could tell me more. Then, I found it. A boomerang video from that same night. A toast being made at the table. Glasses clinking. Olivia leaning in toward that man, her smile wide, laughing at something he said. The way she looked at him, it was familiar. My grip on the phone tightened as something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about a birthday dinner anymore. This was about something deeper. I checked my texts with Olivia, rereading that message she had sent days ago. "Mom isn't feeling well, so we're not gathering this year. A blatant, effortless lie. And now, sitting in front of undeniable proof, I realized something chilling. She had no intention of ever telling me the truth. I wasn't meant to find out. This wasn't just some small omission or white lie. This was deception. And now, I needed to know who the hell that man was. I went back to Julia's post, clicked on the list of people who liked it, and scrolled. If he was tagged, I'd find him. And there he was. A profile with a private account. A name I didn't recognize. No mutual followers. I tapped on his profile picture, staring at it like the answer would jump out at me. Who was he to Olivia? A friend? A coworker? Something more? The thought alone made my chest tighten. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to think. I couldn't jump to conclusions. Not yet. I needed more. I checked my phone history. Olivia had texted me normally that day. Nothing seemed off. But then I looked closer. That night, while she was at the dinner, I had called her. Twice. Both times, she hadn't picked up. She had later texted me, saying, "Sorry, I was already asleep." A complete lie. I exhaled sharply, leaning back in my chair. The pieces were fitting together now, forming a picture I didn't want to see. She had planned this. She had lied to my face without hesitation. She had sat across from another man, laughing, toasting, knowing I was at home, completely unaware. And the worst part? She didn't even seem to feel guilty about it. I closed my eyes, gripping my phone. If she thought she could lie to me this easily, if she thought I was too blind or trusting to ever question her, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. That night, I lay beside Olivia, staring at the ceiling while she scrolled through her phone. Her fingers moved lazily, the soft glow of the screen casting faint shadows across the room. She was completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. She turned to me, resting her head on my chest. "You've been quiet today. Work stress?" I almost laughed. Work stress? No. My stress had a name, a face, and was currently curled up beside me, pretending she hadn't torn a hole in our marriage. I let out a slow breath, keeping my voice even. Yeah, work stress. I felt her relax against me, satisfied with the answer. She had no idea I had spent the last few hours unraveling her lies. No idea that I knew about the dinner, the man, the deception. No idea that I was already planning my exit. The next morning, Olivia hummed in the kitchen while making coffee, as if everything was normal, as if she hadn't erased me from her life, even just for a night. I sat at the table, watching her move around, thinking about how effortlessly she had lied, how easily she had made a choice that excluded me. And yet, she was acting as if nothing had changed. I wondered if she ever planned on telling me the truth, if she ever had a moment of hesitation, or if she truly believed that I was too blind to notice. I wasn't going to ask her. I wasn't going to beg for honesty from someone who had no intention of giving it. Instead, I would make my own choice. One just as silent, one just as final. I watched as she poured her coffee, completely oblivious to the fact that she was losing me, that I had already made up my mind. I was done. Not in a way that meant shouting, demanding answers, or starting a war. I was done in the way that meant I had nothing left to say. Over the next few days, I started preparing. I went through our bank accounts, looking at assets, quietly shifting things into place. I made sure I had everything I needed, documents, passwords, anything that could be used against me in the future. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a dramatic confrontation. I just wanted out, and I wanted her to feel it. I wanted her to wake up one day and realize that the man she thought would always be there, the man she had taken for granted, was gone. Not because I yelled, not because I demanded explanations, but because I simply walked away. That night, Olivia curled up beside me again, her arm draping over my waist. How many times had she held me like this while lying to me? How many other things had she done? Smiling, kissing me, acting like everything was fine. I thought back to the receipt, to the picture, to the man sitting next to her. Did he know about me? Did he know she was lying to someone else while she laughed with him? Or was he just another fool caught in her web? I didn't know. And, honestly, I didn't care. What mattered was that I knew now. I wasn't in the dark anymore. And I was about to leave her exactly how she had left me, without a single warning. The next morning, Olivia was rushing around, getting ready for a weekend trip with her friends. Perfect. It gave me all the time I needed. She kissed my cheek before leaving, completely unaware that when she returned, she would come back to an empty house. I waited until I heard her car pull out of the driveway. Then, I moved. I packed my things quickly, efficiently. I didn't need to take much, just the essentials. I wasn't going to make this a battle over furniture or belongings. I just wanted out. Within an hour, I was done. The house looked the same. Nothing seemed out of place. Except for one thing. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the receipt, and smoothed it out against the dining table. Then, I took out a frame, one of the ones we had used for a wedding photo. I removed the picture inside and replaced it with the receipt, and I set it down in the center of the table. No note, no explanation, just the proof of what she had done. I stood there for a moment, looking at it. Then, without a second thought, I picked up my bag, walked out the door, and didn't look back. By the time Olivia returned from her weekend trip, I would be long gone. I wasn't waiting for a confrontation, a fight, or an apology laced with excuses. I was done. But leaving wasn't as simple as walking out the door and never looking back. No, I needed to plan carefully. This wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about leaving with my dignity intact. I had spent years being the husband who was always there, the dependable one, the one who made sacrifices for the sake of love, for the sake of the life we built together. And for what? To be lied to? To be erased from moments that should have mattered? Not anymore. So, I started making quiet moves. The first step was financial. I had no intention of draining our joint accounts or doing anything drastic, but I wasn't about to walk away empty-handed either. I went through everything, our savings, credit cards, investments. I secured my personal funds, ensuring I had full access without any surprises. I knew Olivia. She wasn't reckless, but she was entitled. If she felt slighted, she wouldn't hesitate to make things difficult for me. I wouldn't give her that chance. The second step was finding a place to stay. I didn't want to go to a friend's house. I didn't want to crash on someone's couch, explaining why I had suddenly left my wife. This wasn't a separation. It was a clean break. So, I found a furnished apartment across town. Short-term lease. Nothing permanent. Just a place to breathe, to exist without the suffocating weight of betrayal pressing down on me. The moment I signed the lease, I felt something lift off my shoulders. I was leaving, and she had no idea. The third step? Gathering evidence. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I planned to use it, but because I refused to let her turn this around on me. I saved screenshots of Julia's Instagram posts, the dinner photos, the videos. I kept the receipt, the one now framed on the dining table like a twisted piece of art. I didn't need to confront Olivia with it. I just needed her to see it, to walk into an empty house, find that receipt staring back at her, and realize that I knew. Realize that she had ruined everything without me ever having to say a single word. The final step was the hardest. Saying goodbye. Not to Olivia. She didn't deserve one. But to the life I had built. The home we had shared. The version of me that had believed we were solid, that had believed we were forever. I walked through the house slowly, memorizing the details I had never really noticed before. The way the afternoon sunlight hit the living room, the small scratches on the dining table from years of use, the faint scent of Olivia's perfume lingering in the hallway. This house had been ours. Now it was just hers. And I was okay with that. Because the man who had built a life in these walls, he didn't exist anymore. By the time I finished packing, my side of the closet was empty. My toiletries were gone. My presence in the house had been erased as thoroughly as Olivia had erased me from that dinner. I stood at the doorway for a moment, gripping my bag, listening to the silence. Then, without hesitation, I turned off the lights, locked the door, and walked out. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The weekend passed in silence. For the first time in years, I was alone. Not in an empty, aching way, but in a way that felt peaceful, liberating. I had no one to check in with, no one to answer to, no lies hanging over my head, no forced smiles across the dinner table. I spent the days unpacking at my new apartment, going through the motions of starting over. Every once in a while, my mind wandered. What was Olivia doing? Was she still laughing with her friends, sipping overpriced cocktails at brunch, oblivious to what awaited her at home? Or had she already walked through that door, seen the empty space where my things used to be, felt the cold weight of realization settle in? By Sunday night, I knew the moment was close. She would be walking into the house soon, and she would see it. The framed receipt. The only thing I had left behind. I imagined it clearly. Her coming through the door, tossing her keys on the counter, kicking off her shoes, maybe humming to herself, still caught up in whatever weekend trip she had convinced herself was well-deserved. Then, she would notice it. The emptiness. No bag by the door. No faint sound of me moving around the house. Maybe she would call my name at first, half-heartedly, expecting me to be in another room. But I wouldn't be there. Then, her eyes would land on the dining table. The frame. The receipt. A simple piece of paper, but it held the weight of everything. Proof that she had lied. Proof that I knew. And most importantly, proof that I had chosen to walk away. I expected a call within minutes. She didn't disappoint. My phone buzzed relentlessly, her name flashing across the screen over and over. I let it ring. Then, the text started. Where are you? Why is your stuff gone? What is this? Then, the real panic. What the hell does this mean? Are you seriously leaving over a stupid dinner? I smirked at that one. A stupid dinner. That's what she called it. As if it was just a meal. As if it wasn't about the lie. As if it wasn't about choosing to erase me. I didn't respond. I let her stew in it. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then 2. The messages stopped. For a brief moment, I wondered, was that it? Had she given up that easily? Then, my phone buzzed again. Not a text. A voicemail. I hesitated, then pressed play. Her voice came through the speaker, frantic, breathless, a mix of anger and desperation. I don't understand what you're doing. You're acting crazy. Why wouldn't you just ask me about it? You think you can just leave without talking to me first? Without letting me explain? She scoffed, and for a moment, I could hear the rage creeping in. Fine. You want to act like a child? You want to throw a tantrum over something so small? Be my guest. But don't think for a second that this is all on me. You're the one walking away. You're the one making it impossible to fix this. A bitter laugh. If you're expecting me to beg, don't hold your breath. Click. The voicemail ended. I exhaled slowly, rolling my phone between my fingers. No apology. No regret. Just anger. Anger that I had left before she had a chance to spin the story in her favor. Anger that I had chosen to walk away on my terms. She wasn't upset because she had hurt me. She was upset because I refused to play along anymore. I stood from the couch, stretching, feeling the tension leave my body. I thought I would feel worse. That maybe, deep down, I would feel guilt or doubt. But I didn't. I felt calm. Because the moment of reckoning had finally come, and Olivia had made one thing crystal clear. She wasn't sorry. She never had been. And I had made the right choice. The first night in my new apartment was quiet. Almost too quiet. No hum of Olivia's hairdryer from the bathroom. No clinking of her wine glass as she scrolled through her phone. No scent of her vanilla-scented candles filling the space. But I didn't miss it. If anything, the silence was liberating. There was no tension. No underlying doubt gnawing at the back of my mind. No need to pretend that everything was fine when it wasn't. For the first time in years, I could just breathe. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone. It had been hours since Olivia's last voicemail. She had gone radio silent. No texts, no calls. Maybe she finally understood. Maybe she realized that I wasn't going to play the game anymore. But deep down, I knew Olivia too well. She wouldn't give up that easily. And I was right. The next morning, the floodgates opened. Call after call. I watched my phone vibrate across the table, her name flashing across the screen, but I didn't pick up. Then, the texts started. At first, they were controlled. Rational. Let's talk about this. You're blowing this out of proportion. It was just dinner. Then, as the hours passed and I continued to ignore her, the tone shifted. So what? You're just going to ghost me? You're such a coward. You're ruining our marriage over nothing. It was almost amusing. She still didn't get it. She thought I left because of the dinner, because of one night. She had no idea that it wasn't just about what she did. It was about who she had become. Someone who could look me in the eyes and lie without hesitation. Someone who could erase me from her life when it suited her. Someone who only cared once she realized she had lost control. By mid-afternoon, her frustration turned into desperation. Please, just talk to me. We can fix this. I swear, it's not what you think. Not what I think. I nearly laughed. What exactly did she think I believed? That the dinner magically organized itself? That the fourth seat at the table was reserved for a ghost? I had given her every opportunity to tell me the truth, and she had looked me in the eyes and chosen to lie. That's what she didn't understand. It wasn't about fixing the marriage. It was about the fact that I no longer wanted to. The text slowed by evening. She was starting to panic. She wasn't used to this, being ignored, being the one who didn't have control of the situation. Then, at exactly 8:32 p.m., she sent the text that made me pause. I'm coming over. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. No, she wasn't. I got up, walked to my apartment door, and double-locked it. If she thought she could barge in, cry, manipulate, throw accusations around until I caved, she was dead wrong. This wasn't some petty argument where she could just talk her way out of it. This was the end. At exactly 9:15 p.m., my doorbell rang. I didn't move. She rang it again, then knocked. Then, her voice came through the door, muffled but clear enough. I know you're in there. Of course, she did. She knocked harder. Can we just talk? I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. No, we couldn't. Talking was for people who deserved explanations. And Olivia didn't. After 5 minutes of knocking, she tried another approach. You're really going to throw away everything we built? Just like that? Yes. You're seriously acting like a child. No. God, you're so dramatic. I smirked. There it was. The shift. She had gone from apologetic to defensive, from pleading to angry. Because she wasn't actually sorry. She was just furious that I was the one who left first. That she hadn't seen it coming. That she had been outplayed. I waited until the knocking stopped, until the frustrated sighs turned into silence. Then, finally, I heard her footsteps retreat. I stayed by the door, listening as she got into her car and drove away. Only then did I exhale, the last bit of tension leaving my body. I had one. And Olivia? She had finally realized. She lost me for good. The morning after Olivia showed up at my apartment, I woke up to a flood of notifications. My phone buzzed repeatedly, her name flashing across my screen, each message more desperate than the last. I ignored them all, but then something unexpected happened. The calls stopped, the texts slowed, and instead, I started receiving messages from mutual friends. That's when I knew. She had started spinning her version of the story. At first, I didn't care. I knew Olivia. I knew she wasn't going to tell the truth. She wouldn't admit that she lied. No, she would frame it as something else. A misunderstanding. A miscommunication. She would downplay it, act like I had overreacted, make me look like the irrational one. I could already picture her words. He left over nothing. I don't even know what I did wrong. I tried to talk to him, but he shut me out. I was a good wife. He just changed. A part of me wanted to set the record straight, to show them the receipt, to send screenshots of the dinner, the lies, the man sitting next to her, to let everyone see the truth. But then I stopped myself, because I realized I didn't need to say a damn thing. Olivia was going to unravel all on her own. It started small. One of my friends, Jake, texted me out of nowhere. Hey man, Olivia's been telling people you just up and left. Is there something I should know? I took a deep breath before responding. I left for a reason. She knows exactly why. I didn't say more. I didn't need to. Jake hesitated, then sent one last message. Got it. I figured there was more to the story. The cracks were forming. Then, 2 days later, I got another message. This time, from Lisa, one of Olivia's friends. I don't want to get involved, but she's not telling the whole truth, is she? That was all she wrote. I smirked. Lisa was sharp. She had always been the type to see through the bullshit. And Olivia, in her panic, had underestimated how quickly people would start to question her version of events. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because Olivia was losing control of the narrative, and there was nothing she could do about it. It wasn't until the group chat screenshot arrived that I knew her world was officially falling apart. A mutual friend, Evan, sent it to me with no context. It was a chat between Olivia, Julia, and some of her friends, and in the middle of it, Julia slipped up. Wait, so he found out about the dinner? And she really acted like nothing happened? Damn. That one message, that one small mistake, was all it took. Because now, her friends knew, and some of them weren't buying her story anymore. After that, Olivia stopped reaching out. The calls stopped. The texts stopped. It was like she disappeared, but I knew better. I knew she wasn't gone. She was just scrambling, trying to figure out how to fix the damage, how to rewrite the story again. But it was too late, because the truth was out. People were talking, and Olivia? For the first time, she was realizing that some lies, once exposed, couldn't be undone. It had been weeks since I left. Weeks since Olivia's texts turned from desperate pleas to angry accusations and finally, to silence. The calls stopped. The messages stopped. At first, I thought she had finally given up, that she had accepted what happened and moved on. But I knew Olivia better than that. She wasn't the type to just let things go. So, when an envelope showed up at my apartment one evening, my gut told me exactly who it was from. I picked it up from the floor where it had been slipped under the door. There was no name on it, but I didn't need one. I knew Olivia's handwriting. I stood by the window, staring at the envelope for a long time before opening it. I had no idea what to expect. Would it be an apology? A last-ditch effort to salvage what was left? Another attempt to manipulate me into believing I had overreacted? I slowly peeled the flap open and pulled out a neatly folded letter. Her words were rushed, her handwriting messier than usual. That, more than anything, told me she had written this in a panic. I don't even know where to start. I feel like you just vanished. Like one day you were here, and then suddenly, you weren't. And I can't understand why you did it this way. Why didn't you just talk to me? I exhaled slowly. That was the problem, wasn't it? She still thought this was about how I left, not why I left. I kept reading. I know you saw the receipt. And I know you think I was trying to hide something. But it wasn't what you think. It was just a dinner, and I didn't invite you because, I don't know. Maybe I just wanted one night where I didn't have to deal with anything. One night where I could just be with my family without worrying about you. I froze. Without worrying about me? I reread that line, my stomach twisting with something sharp and cold. I know it sounds bad, but it's the truth. It was selfish, but it wasn't meant to be cruel. And now, I don't even know if I can fix this, but I want to try. If you ever loved me, please, just talk to me. Give me that, at least. I folded the letter slowly and set it on the table. I had my answer. She didn't regret what she did. She just regretted getting caught. I stared at the letter for a long time, wondering if I should respond, if I should give her the closure she was asking for. But then I thought back to everything, to the way she had looked me in the eye and lied, to the way she had erased me from that night without a second thought, to the way she had only cared once she realized I was truly gone. And I realized something. I didn't owe her a damn thing. She had already made her choice. Now, I was making mine. The next morning, I grabbed the letter, walked to my kitchen, and threw it in the trash. No response. No explanation. Just silence. Because in the end, it wasn't about the dinner. It was about who she had chosen to be. And I refused to spend my life with someone who could smile at me, kiss me, sleep beside me, while lying through her teeth. I stepped onto my balcony, the city stretching before me, lights flickering like stars against the glass buildings. I should have been angry. I should have been bitter. But I wasn't. Because for the first time in a long time, I was free. No more questioning. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. No more lies disguised as love. Just me, moving forward. Without her.